BYD just put a 764 horsepower luxury sedan on sale for $44,000. And if you are shopping for an electric car in the United States right now, that number should not impress you. It should make you angry. The car is called the BYD Dahan. It went on pre-sale on August 21st at the Chengdu Auto Show, and 3 days later, it was already sitting on dealer floors across China. 5.3 meters long, dual-chamber air suspension, rear-wheel steering, a laser scanner mounted on the roof, a 31-speaker Devialet audio system, zero-gravity seats up front wrapped in Nappa leather, and a battery that goes from 10% to 97% in about 9 minutes. 9 minutes, not 90, 9. The starting price is 249,900 yuan. That is roughly 36,850 US dollars. Not a lease deal, not an after-incentive number with fine print underneath it. That is the sticker, and you cannot buy it. Not this year, not next year, possibly not in this decade. The reason has almost nothing to do with the car itself, and by the end of this, you are going to understand exactly who benefits from that. But before the Dahan, let's talk about what actually happens when someone in America walks into a dealership today with $100,000 and says they want a flagship electric sedan. Mercedes will sell you an EQS. The 450 Plus starts at $104,400. It is a genuinely beautiful machine. 390 miles of EPA range, which is real-world honest and respectable. But it runs a 400-volt architecture and tops out around 200 kilowatts of charging speed. 10 to 80% takes about 31 minutes. You are spending 6 figures on the most advanced sedan Mercedes builds, and you are still standing in a parking lot for half an hour. BMW will sell you an i7, starting around $106,800. The interior is extraordinary. The range on the base car is around 314 miles. Lucid will sell you an Air Grand Touring at $114,900. And to be completely fair, the Lucid is the technical high point of the American market. 512 EPA miles. Nothing else sold in the United States comes close. Lucid engineers deserve every bit of credit for that number. But notice what just happened. In the single most expensive segment of the electric car market, in the richest country on Earth, the entry ticket to a flagship EV is somewhere between $100,000 and $115,000. And for most of those cars, you are still charging at speeds that were considered fast in 2021. Then look at the option sheets. Rear seat comfort packages, upgraded audio, massage functions, advanced driver assistance behind a subscription, features that are treated as luxury add-ons, billed separately, on cars that already cost as much as a house in most of the country. Hold that picture in your head, because now we are going to look at the Dahan. Start with presence, because this thing has an enormous amount of it. It measures 5,256 millimeters long. That is just under 207 inches, putting it squarely in S-Class and 7 Series territory. The wheelbase is 3,130 millimeters. It sits low, at just over 59 inches tall, with a roofline that runs almost uninterrupted from windshield to tail. The front end carries a single continuous daytime running light bar that measures 2.41 meters across. BYD says it is the longest one-piece light element ever fitted to a production car. Between the headlights sits a chrome element they call the Dragon Whisker. The door handles are semi-hidden. The wheels are 21 inches with floating center caps that stay upright no matter how fast you are going. And here is the detail most people are going to scroll past. The drag coefficient is 0.197. For context, the Mercedes EQS, a car whose entire design language was dictated by aerodynamics, a car Mercedes marketed as the slipperiest production sedan in the world, sits at around 0.20. BYD went under it, on a car that costs a third as much. Now the technology, and this is where the gap stops being a gap and starts being a canyon. The Dahan runs a 1,000-volt architecture. Not 400, not 800, 1,000. Underneath is a 102.3 kilowatt-hour second-generation blade battery, which is lithium iron phosphate chemistry. On BYD's own flash charging stations, which push up to 1.5 megawatts through a single connector, the pack goes from 10% to 70% in about 5 minutes and 10 to 97 in about 9. Sit with that comparison for a second. The Mercedes takes 31 minutes to reach 80%. The BYD takes 9 to reach 97. And because the chemistry is lithium iron phosphate, you can charge it to 100% every single night without the degradation anxiety that comes with nickel-based packs. That is not a spec sheet win. That is a daily life win. It gets worse for the competition. BYD tested this battery at minus 30 degrees Celsius, genuine northern winter conditions. And the pack still went from 20 to 97% in about 12 minutes. 12! In weather that turns most electric cars into anxious, range-halved liabilities. Every single one of the 3 trims comes standard with a roof-mounted LiDAR unit feeding BYD's God's Eye B-Driver assistance system. Not a $2,000 option. Not a package. Standard on the cheapest car in the lineup. Now the performance, and here the numbers stop reading like a value proposition and start reading like a provocation. The rear-wheel drive versions use a single motor, making 370 kilowatts. That is 496 horsepower in the base car, in what BYD is positioning as the efficiency trim. The all-wheel drive flagship makes 570 kilowatts combined, 764 horsepower. To put that in perspective, a Porsche Taycan Turbo S makes around 750. The BYD makes more. Top speed is somewhere around 168 miles an hour, and 0 to 60 happens in the low 3-second range. Then there is the part that changes how the car feels in a city. Rear-wheel steering brings the turning radius down to 4.95 meters. This is a 17-foot-long sedan that pivots into a parking spot like something 2 feet shorter. Combine that with dual-chamber air suspension that is standard equipment across the range, and you get a car that is genuinely intimidating in a straight line and genuinely easy in traffic. Inside, BYD claims a cabin space utilization rate of 90.8%. Both front seats are zero-gravity units with heating, ventilation, and massage. Nappa leather throughout. 31 Devialet speakers. Real wood trim, all of it standard, on the $36,000 car. Now let's be honest about one thing, because the comments are going to bring it up anyway, and the argument is stronger with it than without it. That 1,008-kilometer range figure, 627 miles, is measured on China's CLTC cycle. CLTC is optimistic. It is a gentler test than the EPA. Cut it by 20 to 25%, and you land somewhere around 470 to 500 real-world miles. And that is exactly the point. Even after you strip out the optimism, even after you apply the harshest possible discount, even after you assume BYD is telling you the best version of the truth, the Dahan still comfortably outranges a $104,000 Mercedes EQS. It still charges roughly 3 times faster. It still makes more power than a Taycan Turbo S, and it still costs about a third of the German car. That is the number nobody at Mercedes, BMW, or Audi once said out loud. So the obvious question is when it arrives in America. And the answer is a wall. There are currently 2 separate barriers, and the one everyone talks about is the smaller one. Chinese-built electric vehicles face a 100% Section 301 tariff. That takes a $36,850 car and turns it into roughly $73,700 before you have paid for a single container, a single compliance modification, or a single dollar of homologation. But the tariff is not really what is stopping it. The Commerce Department finalized a connected vehicle rule that bans Chinese-developed vehicle software starting with model year 2027 and Chinese-made hardware starting with model year 2030. Every modern Chinese EV runs Chinese connectivity and Chinese driver assistance stacks, which means even if the tariff dropped to zero tomorrow, the Dahan would still be illegal to sell in the United States. And in 2026, a bipartisan bill, the Connected Vehicle Security Act, introduced by Senators Moreno and Slotkin, is moving to write that ban permanently into law rather than leaving it as a regulation. Meanwhile, north of the border, something very different is happening. In October 2024, Canada matched the American position exactly with 100% surtax. Then in January 2026, Prime Minister Carney's government reached an arrangement with Beijing, and on March 1st, that surtax was repealed. Chinese electric vehicles now enter Canada at a 6.1% most favored nation rate, under an annual quota of 49,000 vehicles. On a $45,000 car, 6.1% works out to roughly $2,745 in duty. Not $45,000, $2,700. That quota is split into two 6-month windows of $24,500 each. The second window opens on September 1st, 2026, and going into it, more than 11,000 permits from the first window went completely unused. The quota is scheduled to grow 6.5% a year, reaching roughly 70,000 vehicles by 2030. BYD has already completed its federal registration with Transport Canada and is planning a dealership network starting in Toronto. So within driving distance of Detroit, of Buffalo, of Seattle, there will be showrooms selling cars that an American buyer is legally forbidden from owning. And when asked whether any of those Canadian market vehicles might find a path south, the U.S. ambassador to Canada ruled it out entirely. There is already a strange, telling side effect. BYD vehicles wearing Mexican license plates have been spotted driving around Texas and California, entering through a customs allowance for Mexican residents. Americans are watching these cars on their own highways and cannot legally buy one. Here is where this lands. None of this is an argument that China is somehow morally superior at building cars. BYD is a company operating with enormous domestic scale, aggressive state-adjacent industrial policy, and a price war at home so brutal that the Chinese government itself just announced it will start blocking inadequately validated products from reaching market. That environment produces remarkable engineering, and it also produces real casualties. But strip all of that away, and one uncomfortable fact remains standing. A 1,000-volt architecture is not a Chinese state secret. A 9-minute charging curve is physics and thermal management, not magic. Air suspension, rear-wheel steering, LiDAR. Mercedes, BMW, and General Motors have all built every one of these things. There is no technology in the Dahan that a German or American engineering department could not have delivered. The difference is not capability. The difference is a decision. BYD decided that this equipment belongs on a $37,000 car. Everyone else decided it belongs on a $150,000 car, with the massage seats billed separately. The tariff was sold to the American public as protection for American workers and American manufacturing. Watch carefully what it is actually protecting. It is protecting the $100,000 price tag on a sedan that still needs half an hour at a charger. It is protecting the option sheet. It is protecting the idea that a 9-minute charge is a luxury feature instead of the new baseline. The Dahan is not the threat to the American car buyer. The price is. And the most honest thing anyone can say about the next 5 years is this: the wall is holding right now. But every month it holds, the gap on the other side of it gets wider, and the car America is eventually allowed to buy gets further behind the one it was protected from. So the question worth arguing about in the comments is not whether BYD builds a good car. That debate is finished. The question is who exactly is being protected, and whether anyone bothered to ask you.